voice is breaking, sir.
Good morning, sir.
You can start, madam.
Okay, can I start?
Yes, you can start, madam.
Okay. Okay, so very good morning to everyone. And first of all, thanks a lot to Dr. Manilales. Thank you so much for the opportunity, sir. And also, Principal Sir, Dr. P. Venkatesh Rao. Thank you so much for the opportunity. So, and also a special thanks to Dr. Sneha for believing in me and for the opportunity. So, thank you so much again. Now, let me begin my presentation with the. I hope my screen is visible. So, the presentation is regarding the role of homeopathy in different gynecological cases. Along with a right diet, lifestyle, and a holistic support, we can help a lot of women with a lot of gynecological problems. So, before we deal with the gynecological cases, I dig into them. Let me just explain that women have basically three phases in life. You can divide them in three phases roughly. That is the puberty from 11 years to 16 years roughly. Then the reproductive age from the 17 to the 40 years, or you can also divide it into the perimenopausal age. But basically, they are just the three phases mainly. And lastly is the menopausal. After 40, 45, you can say the menopausal stage. Now, what are the common gynecological disorders in which where we as homeopaths can specially provide support? So I have divided them according to the categories. So firstly is the puberty, where we see precocious puberty, delayed puberty, menstrual irregularities, and leukorrhea, etc. Then in the reproductive age, we can again divide it into two parts, that is the gynecological disorders and the obstetric disorders. So in gynecological disorders, there are menstrual irregularities again, leukorrhea, PCOD, PCOS, which is very common nowadays. Then infertility, endometriosis, adenomyosis, fibroids, polyps, DUB, anemia, and fatigue. Right. Then in obstetric disorders, again, we can have a lot of disorders where we can provide support with right constitutional remedy with homeopathy. So these are hyperemesis gravidarum, gestational hypertension, gestational diabetes, gestational thyroid, GI disorders during pregnancy, UTIs during pregnancy, hemorrhoids, which aggravate especially during the pregnancy period, then habitual abortions, abnormal presentations where there is breech presentation, then postnatal depressions, etc. So a lot of problems are there during pregnancy where we can provide support with right homeopathic treatment. Then of course menopause, the menopausal ailments, hot flushes, etc. we can provide a relief with a wide range of medicines that we have. Now, these common gynecological disorders that we discussed just now, I'm going to deal with the four main ones in detail. Okay, so in puberty, the first two are the precocious puberty and the delayed puberty. So we are going to deal with them one by one. So the first is precocious puberty. Now, what is precocious puberty? What is puberty? First of all, puberty is when the reproduction starts, when the female begins to menstruate, the menarche sets in. Now, when this menarche sets in at a very early age, then it is known as early puberty or precocious puberty. Okay, so in homeopathy, we have a lot of rubrics which can help us find out the right remedy, because this thing has already propped in and it has become very, very common these days. Very young girls, they've started to menstruate. 10 years, even 9 years, 8 years, they come up with these kinds of uh, ailments or menses. So there is a rubric, female menses appears proper age before the. So you can see 30 remedies are described. Some of them I have highlighted, which are frequently used ones. So Antim crude is there, Calcarea fos. You can easily make out these children because they tend to be a little obese and overweight, chubby kind of children. So Calcarea cards are easy to detect. Antim crude is also that kind of a obese child. Then you have Casticum, Camomilla. Camomilla is easily recognized through her mental symptoms. They are a little aggressive kind of, they get angry very soon, that kind of irritable children. Okay. So there are a whole lot of remedies you can go through, and according to the constitution and temperament of the child, you can prescribe the medicines. Then again, there is a rubric, female puberty before, then female menarche, first menses appears before the proper age. Again, 29 remedies are mentioned. Now, there is a rubric, female puberty before. How do you categorize this? So, puberty in females, puberty comprises of three main, you can say, landmarks. That is the thelarch, adrenarche, and the menarche. Now, even before the thelarch, if menses appears, that means puberty has not set in properly and menses has begun. So then you can go for these four remedies. That is Calcarea, Senna, Sabina, and Silesia. Now, I have listed down some of the important remedies and their indications for precocious puberty. So these are Antim crude, Calcarea carb, Calcarea phos, Casticum, China, Cinna, Caliphos, Phosphorus, Sabina, Silesia, and sulfur. So, as I said, obese, flabby, and chilly children, you can think of Calcarea, Kali carb, and Antim crude. For thin, tall, and growing children who are growing very fast, you can think of Calcarea phos, Phosphorus, and Silesia. Then, where there is sexual irritability or early genital handling, you can think of Cinna, sulfur, and phosphorus. With early profuse bleeding, there is Sabina, Calcarea carb, and phosphorus. Then weak, debilitated after early puberty, there is China and Silesia. So this is a list where it can help us to select the right remedy for the child. Now we come to the delayed puberty. This is just the opposite of the precocious puberty, where the puberty or the menses have not set in as long as 16 years or 17 years. Okay. So if there is no structural abnormality, no congenital problem, then if there is a delayed puberty, then it might be because of the hormones, because of the endocrinal issues. So we can support it with homeopathy through these rubrics. We can go through them. The first is delayed puberty in girls. We have 52 remedies listed, and I have highlighted some of the frequently used medicines for you. So, the bold ones are the Aristolochia clematitis, Casticum, Graphitis, Kalicarb, Natramure, Pulsatilla, and Senecio. These are the bold ones. And we also have Calcarea fos, again, Antim crude, Ferrum. So there are a lot of medicines which are overlapping in the precocious as well as in the delayed puberty. So this is basically because of the hormonal imbalance. Okay. Now, again, I have listed them according to the constitutions or the prominent symptoms. So the frequently used medicines I have listed, and in case of stunted growth and childishness, of course, Beretta carb is a great remedy where the patient is a very childish behavior she has. So you can think of Beretta carb. Again, Calcarea carb is there also present in the stunted growth where they don't grow much in terms of height, you can say. And graphitis. Then thin, tall, rapidly growing, and emaciated. You can think of Calcarea fos, Natramute, tuberculinum, and zinc. In case of anemic, Ferrum fos, Pulsatilla, and Kali fos. These remedies play a very, very important role. Then in case of nervous weakness, Sepia, Casticum, zinc, and Kali fos. They are very, very important remedies when there is nervous weakness, especially involved. Then, where emotional and mental causes supervene, we can think of Natramure for grief, Pulsatilla for girls who are very timid in nature, and Aurum where they have depression or even suicidal tendencies. Now, we come on to the third category, that is the menstrual abnormalities. Now, I have listed these menstrual abnormalities into 8 categories. So, these are 8 common menstrual irregularities or abnormalities that we tend to see in clinics. The first is amenorrhea, that is the absent period. And from amenorrhea, here we mean the secondary amenorrhea. That means menses have set in, and after setting in, it has stopped. So this we consider as secondary amenorrhea. Then there is dysmenorrhea, which means they are painful periods causing cramps, nausea, backache, etc. And with dysmenorrhea, we especially mean painful periods where the day-to-day activity is affected. With periods, we tend to have some of pain and discomfort will be there. Okay. But when the pain is so much severe that your daily activities are affected, then it is considered as dysmenorrhea. Then oligomenorrhea. Oligomenorrhea is infrequent cycles. That means the duration or the time period of the cycle is greater than 35 days. Means the menses are coming after 35 or more days. That is oligomenorrhea. Then polymenorrhea is frequent periods. That means menses are coming in less than 21 days. The frequency of the periods is more. That is polymenorrhea. Then hypomenorrhea is scanty periods. Your periods might come on time, they might be a little delayed or early, but the important is that they are scanty periods. That means they will last only for one day or for few hours. That is hypomenorrhea. Okay, and the quantity will be very, very less. Then the sixth is menorrhagia or hypermenorrhea, where there is excessive bleeding. Excessive bleeding for more than 6 days, 7 days, continuously the bleeding is occurring and occurring. That is menorrhagia. Then metrorrhagia. Metrorrhagia is bleeding between the periods. Periods have come, the bleeding happened, and it stopped. Then again in between the periods some kind of bleeding is happening. That is metrorrhagia. Then premenstrual symptoms. Premenstrual symptoms are that just before your periods there are a lot of symptoms coming up or aggravating. That is bloating, there is extreme indigestion, flatulence, breast tenderness, heaviness, acne are coming up, tiredness is there, fatigue. All these are come under a premenstrual syndrome. And after menses or just when the menses have set in, all these symptoms subside automatically. Now we will deal with them one by one. So amenorrhea, as I have said, we consider amenorrhea as the secondary amenorrhea. That is the true amenorrhea, which is primary and secondary. Primary is where menses have not set in at all. Okay, the menses have not started. That is primary amenorrhea. And where the menses have set in and then it has stopped, that is the secondary amenorrhea. Now, what are the causes of primary and secondary amenorrhea? In case of primary amenorrhea, usually we see that there is hypothalamo-pituitary ovarian axis, which is causing the problems. So there might be hypogonadotropic hypogonadism, hypergonadotropic hypogonadism. Okay, we will have to differentiate between these things. Sometimes delayed puberty and this primary amenorrhea is also very thin line between them. So this is the judgment of the physician, that we have to judge whether it is a delayed, this is a case of a delayed puberty or a primary amenorrhea. So after all the investigations proper have been done, then we have to conclude that this is a case of primary amenorrhea. And usually we don't get to see these cases in clinic. I have never seen a case of primary amenorrhea. We only see cases of secondary amenorrhea usually in our clinics. Now, in case of secondary amenorrhea, it is absence of menstruation for 6 months or more after normal menses have already established. So, what are the main causes of this secondary amenorrhea? There are uterine factors, there are ovarian factors, there are pituitary factors, there are hypothalamic factors, there are adrenal factors, there are thyroid factors. Then there can be some systemic illnesses and some iatrogenic factors. So we see that the whole hormonal orchestra, it works to establish a normal menstrual cycle. And if one hormone is disturbed, it tends to disturb the other hormonal orchestra as well. So any of those hormones can be a triggering factor, and then the menses stops. Now next, if we go through the repertory, we see a lot of rubrics for amenorrhea. The first is female amenorrhea, menses absent. So in case of especially primary amenorrhea, you can go with this rubric where the menses have not set in at all. This is amenorrhea, menses absent. In young girls, you can see there is a rubric, only two medicines are mentioned. One is Ignatia and the other is X-ray. Okay, but I haven't seen any case of primary amenorrhea till now. Then in case of secondary amenorrhea, we can go with the rubric female menses suppressed. That means menses had established, but now it got suppressed due to various reasons. Now, when especially in young girls it is seen, there are 4 medicines listed: Calcaria fos, Natrum mur, Podophyllum, and Pulsatilla. I have highlighted this rubric. And in case of young girls, there is another rubric where only single medicine Senecio is present. Okay, then according to the constitution also you can take the sub rubrics, like feeble women, you can think of sepia, plethoric women, there is veratrum varied given in bold. Also belladonna is present, glonine is present, and some other remedies. Then scrawny women, in there is a single remedy, Sickle core. These are very thin, scrawny, no muscles at all, no fats at all, very thin women. That is scrawny women. Then scrofulous women are Beraita-Carr, Silesia, and sulfur in second grade given. In thin women, you see again Apis, Argentum nitricum, Nux vomica, Phosphorus, and Secalcor. So these are some rubrics which will help you in selecting your right remedy or the similimum. Then again, there is a rubric. Sometimes patients come and they say that I think menses are about to appear, but they are not appearing. They have a feeling that it is about to come, but it doesn't come. So you can go with the rubric female menses appear as if would. So 51 remedies are given here. And according to the symptoms, you can select your remedy. Now, again, I have listed some important medicines here. For delayed puberty and sluggish girls, we can think of Calcarea-Carr, Calcarea fos, Graphitis, Silesia, and Lycopodium. Anemia and chlorosis, you can think of Ferrum, Calcarea fos, and Natramine. For emotional causes, you can think of Ignatia, Lachesis, Natramure, Nux mosqueta, and Pulsatilla. Nux mosqueta is also a very, very important remedy for amenorrhea in females, especially when the emotional causes are present. And these women are very, very thirstless. The important symptom is that they are thirstless and they will be very, very fatigued or sleepy all the time. They will not be very active, or you won't see them in a very energetic this condition. They tend to be very, very weak or have a low energy, and they sleep a lot. So you can think of Nux mosqueta. Then in case of venous stasis and bearing down, sepia and sulfur. Then when regulatory remedies fail, when you think that your indicated remedy, your apparently indicated remedy has failed, then you can think of Senecia, Aristolochia, Clematitis, and X-ray. X-ray is a remedy where it stimulates the vital force so that the other indicated remedies also start to work well. So sometimes X-ray can trigger that or give that stimulation in your patient. Now we come to the third menstrual abnormality, that is the dysmenorrhea. Dysmenorrhea is again of two major types, that is primary and secondary. Primary is the spasmodic dysmenorrhea, where there is no identifiable pelvic pathology. And the secondary is the congestive dysmenorrhea, where menstruation is associated with pain occurring in presence of pelvic pathology. Now, the secondary or congestive dysmenorrhea is usually what we tend to see, because the primary ones, they don't come to us for homeopathy. They tend to take allopathic remedies, and they think homeopathy will act slow and they don't want to bear pains. So usually girls have a habit of taking Meftal, Spas, etc. for this primary amenorrhea. So usually you don't see cases of dysmenorrhea that prominently. They come to us when they have developed some pathology like endometriosis or adenomyosis, etc., where there is extreme pain. They're taking medicines and it's not working, and every month they have the same problem. So these are the cases of secondary or congestive amenorrhea. And the important symptom of congestive dysmenorrhea is that their pain is relieved as the menses proceeds. One day, second day, third day, the pain tends to go down. But in case of primary or spasmodic dysmenorrhea, more the menses, more the pain. More the flow, more the pain. So semicifuga kind of symptoms are seen in case of primary dysmenorrhea. Then we have two more categories. One is membranous dysmenorrhea and the other is the ovarian dysmenorrhea. In case of membranous dysmenorrhea, it is a variant of primary only, but it is very rare. And big endometrial casts are shed in this. Okay. And in ovarian dysmenorrhea, pain is 2-3 days before menses, just like in congestive dysmenorrhea, and pain is dull and continuous, and it is due to ovarian nerve degeneration or sclerosistic condition of the ovaries. So this is ovarian in origin, that is the ovarian dysmenorrhea. Now, if we have a look at the rubrics present in the repertory, I use Murphy's repertory, third edition. So these are some screenshots of the radar software that I have taken, and I have highlighted some of the important rubrics and the medicines. So here we see, in case of primary or spasmodic dysmenorrhea, female pain uterus, menses during. Right? This is a rubric with 52 remedies. Then there is a sub-rubric beginning of at. Again, 11 remedies are present here. So according to your case, you can think of the remedies. Then there is a rubric cry out compels her to during. Again, 11 remedies are mentioned here. Now, in case of secondary or congestive dysmenorrhea, you can think of female pain uterus, amelioration during. That means when the menses have set in, the pain tends to ameliorate. So you can think of these many remedies. Then again, membranous dysmenorrhea, there is a separate rubric for membranous dysmenorrhea with 42 remedies. And in case of ovarian dysmenorrhea, you can think of female pain ovaries, menses aggravation during. This is the rubric that I have selected, and this is 27 remedies mentioned. So you can see the important ovarian remedies like Epis, Palladium, Lachesis, Thuja. These come under the ovarian neuralgia or ovarian dysmenorrhea. Now, the homeopathic support. Again, I have listed some of the important remedies. So this is for primary or spasmodic dysmenorrhea. We have, if better by warmth, pressure, and bending double, we have 3 remedies, that is Magphos, Colocynth, and Chamomilla. Constriction, band-like pain, Cactus. Cactus is a remedy for heart symptoms, but it is also a remedy for primary dysmenorrhea. Then labor-like pains radiating to thighs. Cimicifuga is an important remedy. Just like I said before, that more the flow, more the pain. So cimicifuga is present in labor-like pains, also radiating to thighs. And viburnum. Viburnum is also a very, very important remedy for all kinds of pains during menses. Then, in case of neuralgic radiating pain, xanthoxylum and cocculus. For emotional and mild individuals, pulsatilla. Irritable and frantic, chamomilla and nux vomica. Tubercular constitutions, there is tuberculinum. So these are some important remedies for primary dysmenorrhea. For secondary, puberty, thin, tall girls and delayed calcarea fos. Estrogenic congestion and ovarian cysts, we have to think of folliculinum. And usually these days, where there is so much hormonal imbalance, folliculinum is a very, very important remedy. And it is a must to have in all gynecological practices. Then venous congestion, hot, left ovary, better flow begins, there is Lachesis. Bearing down, venous stasis, and indifferent. Important remedy is sepia. If pre-flow suppression and congestive pains are present, then viburnum is the remedy. Then congestion plus restless nerves, that is fidgety feet, you can think of zinc. So some medicines have prominent symptoms and it is very easy to recognize them. But sometimes it is very, very difficult to find out remedies because patients, they don't want to wait. So usually these patients come to us with chronic conditions where they have already suffered a lot and where they have already taken a lot of painkillers, etc., and still they find no relief. So then they come to us. So now we come to oligomenorrhea. Oligomenorrhea, as I said before, that the menses is very, very late. That means the cycle is more than 35 days. So, according to the number of days it is delayed, we also have rubrics. You can see so many sub rubrics are present: 2 days too late, 2 or 3 months, 3 days too late, 4 days too late. So, we have a whole list of sub rubrics like that. And so many remedies for, in general, late menses. That is 190 medicines are given. Now, I have highlighted some of the rubrics. In case of young girls, there is a rubric with 4 remedies. And in case of puberty at, also there is a sub-rubric with 12 remedies. Now, this oligomenorrhea can be scanty also, and it can be profuse also. The menses come after 35 days. They might be delayed 10 days or 12 days, but when they come, they are very profuse. Yes. Now, for homeopathic support for oligomenorrhea, puberty, tearful, pulsatilla. In case of young girls, that means around puberty, and they are tearful, of course, we know the characteristic of pulsatilla, that is, they are very tearful, they want sympathy. So, if such cases, we have to prescribe pulsatilla. Okay, in case of oligomenorrhea. Then climaxes and congestion, we see lachesis and sepia present. So, in case of elderly women around the climaxes or around the menopausal age, we have to think of lachesis and sepia, where they tend to have periods which are coming in 2 months or 3 months or like that. Then anemic and delicate females, we have to think of Calcarea fos, Coculus, and Graphitis. For ovarian edema, Epis. Epis is a very important remedy for ovarian edema, where if the patient comes up with an ultrasound also where ovarian edema is present, then you can think of Epis and Thuja. Of course, Thuja is also an important remedy. Then you can, according to the side also, it is very important. Thuja is generally a left-sided and Epis is generally a right-sided. Then chronic psoric state, sulfur, and weak spine and stitching pains, Kalikar. Now the fourth is hypomenorrhea. It is a condition when the menstrual bleeding is unduly scanty and lasts for less than 2 days. That means the quantity is less. It might come on time. It might come in every 28 days, but whenever it comes, the quantity is very, very less and the duration is also very less. So female menses scanty. Now you can see there are so many sub-rubrics, and according to the sub-rubrics, you can select the remedy for your case. Nux moscata, you can see, is prominent in so many sub-rubrics. For weakness, for fright from, in hysterical women, in exertion from, so many sub-rubrics, Nux moscata is indicated. Then homeopathic support for hypomenorrhea, too short. When the periods are too short, there is another rubric, short 2, that is lasting only for 1 to 6 hours only. There is single remedy Lycopus virginica mentioned here. Then for 2 days, Epis, Antimtart, and Veratrum, and this Manganum. Then 2 or 3 days sepia, 3 days sepia, 3 or 4 days lachesis. So accordingly, you can select your remedy. I'm just highlighting these rubrics so that it is easier for you to find out the remedies according to the cases. And I have also highlighted these remedies which are frequently indicated. Now, for puberty and changeable flow, pulsatilla. Pulsatilla, we all know that the flow is very, very changeable. All the symptoms are actually changeable in pulsatilla. They don't come up with the same symptoms every time. They are coming up with the changed symptoms, but the only thing that is not changeable in them is that their mental attitude. They want sympathy, they are so timid. That is the constant thing in them. Otherwise, everything is changeable in them. Then thyroid and cardiac link, if we see, we have to think of Lycopus virginica. Lycopus is actually a cardiac remedy, is a heart remedy. So whenever a lady comes up with some heart symptoms or some thyroid disorders, then we have to think of Lycopus virginica. Then climacteric and congestive, if we see, then lachesis and sepia, anemic and weakly, ammonium carb, creosote. Ammonium carb is also a very, very underused remedy, especially for anemia and weak ladies. Then chronic soric venous stasis, that is sulfur. Then polymenorrhea. Polymenorrhea is frequent or too early menses, that is too soon. That is less than 21 days if periods are coming, we have to take this rubric polymenorrhea. So if it is 2 days early, 3 days early, 4 days early, 5 days early, so accordingly there are so many sub rubrics given. So this you have to check out with your patient, and they have to be very sure whether it is regular or it is irregular. That is also one thing. Sometimes it is 4 days early, sometimes it is 10 days early. So you cannot go with these rubrics. These rubrics can be taken when the menses is regular, means every time it is 4 days early, every time it is 7 days early. Then we can think of these sub rubrics. Then there is a rubric mentioned young persons in. Only Calcarea fos is mentioned in young persons. So if a young lady comes up with a short this cycle, then we can think of Calcarea fos. Then polymenorrhea with menorrhagia or hypermenorrhea, that means it is too early and it is too profuse. The quantity is also very much. So then we have 104 remedies, and protracted means it stays for 4 days, 5 days, 6 days, like that. So then you can take these rubrics. Then this is usually very less, but polymenorrhea with oligomenorrhea or hypomenorrhea, that means the cycle is too frequent but the quantity is very less. That means it is scanty, and the duration is also very short. That means it is only for 2 days or only for 3 days. Okay, so then you can go for these sub rubrics. Then menorrhagia. Menorrhagia, we see where the menses is occurring for more than 5 days, 6 days, 7 days, like that. So we have to take protracted or prolonged rubric here. So according to the number of days it is prolonged, you can take the sub rubrics. Senecio is present here for 8 to 9 days, lachesis and senecio. In bold it is given. And 8 to 10 days, sepia is present in bold along with platina. In such cases, this Calcarea carb and lachesis, sabina usually when they have the mixed kind of menses where clots are also present and the fluid is also present, then we can think of sabina. And Thalaspi bursa pastoris is also a very, very important remedy here. Then in case of metrorrhagia is what? Bleeding between the periods. So this is not actually a period. This is bleeding. This is bleeding in between the two periods. So sometimes bleeding is so much that it is lasting until the next period. So that is also an important thing in some patients. One patient came to me. She had periods for the entire month. The one period was ending, and then she had bleeding in between. So only 1 to 3 days only she was there without the menses. So between menstrual periods, you have 44 important remedies. Calcarea is present in bold. Hemamelis is there because it is also a remedy for this venous hemorrhage. Then chamomilla is present, sabina is present, Thelespi bursa pestiris is present, Silesia is also present. Now, in case of cachectic women, we see nitric acid and Cicalcor, and in case of cancerous affections in creosote, medorinum, phosphorus, Thelespi, and Ustilaco is there. Then, if we tend to see this in young girls, in little girls, there is a rubric with 7 important remedies. Okay. So, all the rubrics important I have mentioned and I have highlighted them. Now, if there is bright red profuse clots with pains, you have to think of Sabina. This is my this thing clinical remedies that I use very frequently and I think of. So you can say this is my therapeutics kind of thing, which I have listed after every topic. So bright red and profuse clots with pains, you have to think of Sabina first. Then dark passive venous bleeding with sore bruised uterus, think of Hemamelis first. Then when there is dark stringy blood, think of Ustilago. Dark offensive relaxed uterus, think of sepia. Emotional excitable women, clotted bleeding, think of Ambragracia. Now we come to our 8th and the last abnormality, menstrual abnormality, where the premenstrual symptoms, premenstrual syndrome, where the symptoms of PMS are prominently seen. So I have listed them under a table where the emotional symptoms are given in one category and the physical symptoms are given in the other category. So usually these women, they have all the aggravation of these symptoms just before the periods. 1 week or sometimes 4 days, 5 days before their periods, they tend to have all these symptoms which aggravate highly. They can be very cranky, very irritable, very angry just before they are getting their periods. Okay, and all the GIT symptoms might aggravate, the breast symptoms might aggravate, they tend to become more tender or swollen. Sometimes some nodules also might be felt just before the periods, and after the periods, they feel normal. So these are all the symptoms which you can see. Now, in the repertory, in Murphy's repertory, a whole rubric is given by the name of premenstrual syndrome with 79 medicines mentioned under it. So, Calcarea first, folliculinum you see is given in bold here. So, folliculinum is a very, very important remedy, especially nowadays with so much hormonal imbalance. We see menstrual syndrome rubrics. And when there is breast aggravation, symptoms pointing to breast aggravation, then we think of 10 remedies given here: Kali Carb, Kali Mure, Lac Caninum, Phytolacca. Phytolacca is also a very important remedy for nodules. Okay, when small nodules are present, Phytolacca is a very, very important remedy. So, in case of homeopathic support for PMS, we have to think of lachesis when the lady is very, very irritable and she has relief from the flow. When she is VP, mild with irregular flow, think of pulsatilla. When she is indifferent and with bearing down sensation, you have to think of sepia. When there is breast pains and shifting sides, this shifting of the sides, this changeableness is also seen in Lac Caninum. One day they will have left-sided problem, the other day they will have right-sided problem. Then ovarian hormonal imbalance, you have to think of Oophorinum, Folliculinum, and Aurum Natronatum. Aurum Natronatum is also a very, very important remedy. Especially, it has a special action on the uterus. Okay. Then flatulence and bloating, lycopodium, silent grief, natromure, and spasmodic cramps, you have to think of cuprum. And in case of restless feet and legs, you have to think of zincum. Now, this is a summary of whatever we have been going through up till now. We were dealing with the precocious puberty initially, and the important remedies are mentioned here. Then we dealt with the delayed puberty. Again, the important remedies I have mentioned. Then the third part we were dealing with the menstrual abnormalities, under which 8 menstrual abnormalities we had studied. So all the important remedies I have listed them in this table or chart, so you can go through this. Now the last part, the fourth part that we were dealing with were PCOD and PCOS. Now this has become very common these days. When I was a student, we never used to see these cases that frequently. It was known as teen Leventhal syndrome, and it was considered as a very rare syndrome, not usually seen. But in the last decade, we have seen that this PCOD and PCOF have risen drastically, and it is like an epidemic now of PCOS and PCOD. Every one girl in 5 to 6 girls is suffering with PCOD and PCOS. So, the root cause is the hormonal imbalance that has propped up very commonly nowadays. So, and it is also one of the main reasons for infertility associated with hormonal imbalance and anovulation, because the important symptom of PCOD is anovulation, chronic anovulation. Ovulation is not happening for months together. Periods are not coming for months together. So obviously it will be the reason for infertility. So what are the causes of this PCOS? Hormonal imbalance, first of all, and there is increased androgens. Not just this, the missing of the periods, but for PCOS to occur, you have to have an increased androgens. If the androgens are normal, you cannot classify it as a PCOS. Then insulin resistance is also one thing which is very highly associated with PCOD. These women tend to develop diabetes in a later age. Then genetic predisposition, lifestyle factors, poor diet, lack of exercise, sedentary lifestyle, etc. Then toxin accumulation, fetal exposure to male hormones. All these are causes of PCOS and PCOD. Then what are the clinical features of PCOD and PCOS? The first and the most important is delayed or irregular periods, oligomenorrhea, and hypermenorrhea. Then there is no sign of periods for months together. This is very important. Whenever PCOD cases come to us, they say that for 3 months, for 4 months, for 6 months together, they are not having periods. And there is no sign also. They don't feel like they are having periods. Then they develop unwanted facial hair, especially around the chin, etc. They develop hair. They can have severe acne or oily skin. And another important feature is excessive weight gain or obesity. These women, 80% of these women, they tend to gain weight. They will gain weight over the time. Then they will feel fatigued. They look fatty, but they feel very weak inside. They don't have that stamina. There is lack of stamina. Then when we go for the ultrasounds, we can have these ovarian cysts present in the ovaries, one or both the ovaries. Then high androgens, again, if we go for the hormonal assays, the testosterone levels will be very high. So this is another important clinical feature of PCOD, PCOS. Then fluctuating mood, feeling stressed and depressed, discoloration of the skin, uneven skin tone is present in PCOS, hair thinning and loss of scalp hair, and insulin resistance or diabetes. So these are some important features. Then how do you diagnose? The main and the important source is the history of the patient, then the examination of the patient, ultrasound, of course, ultrasound, where we see that there are a lot of follicles present in the periphery of the one or both the ovaries. Then blood tests, the hormonal assays, and the glucose levels. So this is the way we diagnose PCOS and PCOD. Then it is also one of the important causes, as I said, of infertility in females. So ovarian causes alone account for 45% of the infertility cases in females. Then tubal causes are 35%, uterine causes are 5%, and other are 15%. So we see PCOD is a major reason for infertility in females because of anovulation, because there is no ovulation. Then hormonal imbalance disrupts the egg development, and insulin resistance further aggravates the reproductive dysfunction. Then if we try to find out PCOS and PCOD in repertory, there is no single rubric. Okay, so the first rubric you will search for is the suppressed menses that I have already mentioned before. And after that, a lot of other rubrics will help you select your remedy. So I have mentioned them. So one is the face, hair, facial. On the face of these women, they have a lot of facial hair. Okay, especially around the chin, if they have hair, there is a single remedy given, Oleum jacoris. And upper lip, also again a single remedy, Oleum jacoris. Then mustache women in, we have 5 remedies: cortico, natromure, sepia, thuja, and thyroidinum. So these are 5 important remedies you can think of, and along with Oleum jacoris whenever you have hirsutism or facial hair in women or girls. Then skin falls out when they come up with the problem of hair fall along with the imbalance, hormonal imbalance, or these PCOD. Then you can think of skin, hair falls out. 21 remedies, and unusual parts also you can see Oleum jacoris is mentioned. Then they might come up with acne, so you can go for face, acne, and there is a subrubric, menstrual irregularities with. So prefer this rubric because in PCOS, menstrual irregularities are bound to be present. They will be present by default. And along with this, acne will be present. So go with the rubric menstrual irregularities with. Now there are 2 more rubrics, acne rosacea and acne vulgaris. So I have also differentiated the two with the help of this picture. So you can see acne rosacea is that reddish spots around the whole cheek, and acne vulgaris is that elevated small individual kind of acne. So this acne vulgaris is usually associated with the hormonal imbalance. So usually in PCOD cases, we see these kinds of acne only. So whenever a case of PCOS or PCOD comes to you, and with acne, you go with the rubric of acne vulgaris. Okay. Now there is another rubric, masculine girls. This you can very easily make out these girls who have a habit of these masculine tendencies they have, or they have mannish habits. Okay. So sepia is an important female remedy of alpha females. These are. So, and natromure and nux vomica, they are present in both the rubrics. That means they are present in girls also and in women also, means elder women. Now I have some pictures of these women. You can easily make out these are masculine women. They have these tendencies, or they want to be dressed up like males. They don't, in the first impression, you have to think, oh, whether this is a girl or this is a boy. So these are some eminent personalities I have mentioned here. This is Falguni Pathak. Then this is Barkha Dutt, you can make out. And this is Ellen DeGeneres. This is a very famous American TV host. Okay. And another is our famous first women IPS officer, Kiran Bedi ma'am. So not all women with this mannish habits will have PCOS, but still if you find these remedies, it is easy to detect these constitutions. So you can go with this rubric, and then it is a lot more easier to find their medicines. Okay, because we have so less remedies in masculine girls, only 9 and in 5 in women. So it is easier to find out their medicines. Now, indications of the important SAR codes. Some of the important SAR codes in case of PCOD and PCOS, where the problem is very chronic, we have to use SAR codes in most cases, because otherwise we won't be able to treat them well. So, hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenals, and ovaries, according to the prominence of the symptoms or the problems, we have to think of the remedies. We can give these remedies in support with our constitutional ones. And the cases work very well when we use SAR codes along with the constitutional remedies. So hypophysis 30 to balance the pituitary signals, and it regulates LH and ovulation. Ovarianum 6, it stimulates ovarian functions and it enhances follicle maturation. In PCOS, the main problem is that the follicles are not maturing. There is no Graafian follicle present. All the follicles are maturing to a certain extent, and after that, there is no selection of the Graafian follicle. Okay, so this ovarianum helps them to mature and a Graafian follicle is formed. Then pituitarianum, it balances prolactin and it restores the cycles. Then testis, when there is high level of androgens present, a lot of facial hair and oily skin and hair loss is present, then you can think of these testes, which will help in reducing the testosterone and balance that masculine tendencies. Then high androgens, you have to think of adrenaline. Estrogen, where there is low estrogen and thin endometrium, which means that there will be very, very less periods, that is hypomenorrhea will be present there, because there is no endometrial growth there. So to support that, estrogen 6 can be given. Then again, our folliculinum. This can also work as the constitutional, and it can also work as a supportive to our constitutional. Folliculinum is specially used to support ovulation. Now the follicles mature, and after the Graafian follicle is formed, it has to rupture. But it doesn't rupture. So in that cases, we have to use folliculinum. Again, I have made a small chart where the important remedies are listed. So you can go through this chart. Now, since we have a very less time, I will start with all my cases. So this is the first case of large adnexal cyst with cornual and tubal blocks. So this is a 32 years housewife who presented with the following symptoms: primary infertility 3 years back, then heaviness with pain in left iliac fossa about 1 year, and recurrent vaginal infections, burning pain with swelling with itching inside and vulval region, pain with weakness in both lower limbs and recurrent twitching, aggravation exertion and amelioration rest, pain during coition about since 1 year, and general lethargy and easy exhaustion present since about 8 months, and weight loss since 6 months. So this is the case, and these are some important physical generals that I have mentioned. So the past history is per vaginal discharge 4 years back, treated with allopathic and Ayurvedic medicines. Then right ovarian cystectomy was done in this. Okay, then no significant family history, and mental generals were she desired company, mild but recurrent bouts of irritability, brooding, offended easily, sentimental, consolation aggravation. But she follows traditions, and so this was a very important rubric pointing towards the Kali group. Then on general examination, the build was average, the complexion was fair, BP was almost normal, and uh, weight was 60 2 months back, and in just 2 months the weight has reduced to about 8 kgs. Then the pathological reports, they show right cornual block and left tubal block, and the other ultrasounds reports are also attached here. Now we jump on to the assessment of the case. Now this case is pointing to a psychosyphilitic state where patient was under allopathic treatment, but still her disease was increasing. An ultrasonographic report is showing increase in the size of the cyst, and patient had gone through a surgical intervention, also ovarian cystectomy. But the cyst regrew within about a year, and pathological symptoms are dominating. So, physical generals and pathological symptoms should have to be given importance. And here, the patient is showing constitutional state of Kali with the blending of silicea. So, the remedy selected was Kali silicata. Now, such type of remedies are not well proved. Hence these remedies don't show very well in the repertorization chart. Whenever we do the repertorization, only the common polycrests are shown. These some of the the remedies which are not proved very well, or small remedies, they are not shown properly in these repertorization charts. So in this way, this remedy was selected. These are the physical generals, the mental generals, and the particulars which are pointing towards Kali silicata, and the remedy was prescribed. And after the prescription of the medicine, here are the reports. These are the previous reports, and where you can see the large ovarian cyst, and this is the normal study after the medicine. So, the study of materia medica and understanding the medicine has a patient with selecting keynotes and important symptoms to select a remedy is the most appropriate way for prescribing, because repertory, of course, repertory has limitations. We have to have knowledge of materia medica, because without the knowledge of materia medica, we won't be able to judge whether the repertorial the result which has shown, it is right or wrong. Or even if it is right, we have to think whether the prominent simillimum presently is the second one or the third remedy which is coming up in the chart. So this is totally depends upon the discretion of the physician, and it comes only with the knowledge of materia medica. So you have to have knowledge of materia medica. Okay, so this is the first case. Now we come on to the second case. This is the PCOD and infertility case. So this is a lady of 33 years, housewife with secondary infertility, and she had a miscarriage at 3 months of age. The third month, and she was married 5 years back. She has developed irregular menses since last 1 year, and she also had leukorrhea with extreme weakness, low libido, and facial hair on the chin. This was all the symptoms of the patient. Then we have the physical generals. Now, the important thing was that she was very weak, and she had a history of miscarriage in the third month. This was very important. Okay, and this was secondary, this was a case of secondary infertility. That means she was not able to conceive also. So she was given cifalinum 1 m single dose, and after that sepia 1 m was given, and elytris ferinosa was given to her in 6 potency in repeated doses. So after that she conceived also, and she carried the pregnancy to full term and delivered a healthy baby boy. So elytris ferinosa is a very, very important remedy where we see where there is extreme weakness with heaviness in uterus. There might be prolapse also, and because of the weakness of the uterine muscles, there can be habitual abortions also. Okay. Now we come on to the third case. This is a case of recurrent UTI and stress incontinence. So, a 29 years housewife, she presented with the following complaints. There were burning urination. She has had UTIs multiple times in last 2-3 years. Okay, so she had burning urination, and there was also constant urging to urinate since her last delivery. About 1 year ago she had delivery, and after that she felt that she wanted to urinate, and she also had stress incontinence. That means she passed a few drops of urine while coughing and sneezing, etc. Okay, no prominent other history or other symptoms were present, and the physical generals were taken. And after the repertorization, the main remedy came out to be staphysagri, and it is also present as a single remedy. Oh, sorry, along with opium, just two remedies after childbirth, means urging to urinate constant after childbirth. Okay, so Staffi was given, and later she also required casticum. So this case was cleared with single dose of Staffi and single dose of casticum later on. Now, Staffi and casticum are also complementary remedies, and casticum is actually the chronic of Staffi. So this was the case. Now, the fourth case was of low backache and PMS. Now, this is a 22 years unmarried lady. She presented with the following complaints: severe low backache, especially during menses, and she also had irregular menses since last 6 to 7 months, with extreme weakness and especially anxiety around the menses. Just before the menses, she used to be very, very restless and full of anxiety, etc. All those symptoms, irritation, etc. And she also had loss of appetite. So this was the main symptoms. Then I also take the physical generals. So the appetite was poor, there was milk aggravation, she was thirstless, occasionally constipated, urine and perspiration were normal, thermals were chilly, and menses were irregular and scanty. Then, as I said before, there is a separate rubric given in the repertory of premenstrual syndrome, and so many medicines are given. And her medicine turned out to be Kali Carb. So she was given a dose of Kali Carb, single dose, and she improved much. And Kali Carb had to be repeated once again in a gap of 2-3 months. So she was very well taken care of with Kali Carb. All her backache relieved, and all her menstrual symptoms, the premenstrual symptoms that were aggravating, they were also relieved. Now, the fifth case is of leukorrhea before puberty. Now, this was a child of 10 years old girl. She was brought by her mother. The mother was also my patient, and she brought her child, 10 years old. She was complaining of white discharge. Now, she desires uh, oranges. This was very specific for this child. The appetite was good, the thirst was average, stools were normal, history of burning urination, and perspiration poor and chilly. Once in a while, she also had this burning urination. This was said by her. Now, there is a rubric and repertory: female vaginal discharge leukorrhea, girls in little. 26 medicines are mentioned for leukorrhea in young girls. Okay. And there are so many medicines. Merck and CPR are given in prominence, first grade remedies. And there are second grade remedies, Sina, Pulsatilla, and many others. But the medicine selection here was of Medorinum. Medorinum, single dose. Medorinum is also present there. In third grade, however, it is present. But Medorinum was given to this child, a single dose. And after that, she never complained of any of the vaginal discharge. The mother is also my patient. Now, this is the sixth case is of endometriosis and adenomyosis. Now, this is a 22-year unmarried lady presented with the following complaints. She had severe painful menses, and the important symptom was she used to get hospitalized every time she got periods since last 2 years. So this was her condition. She was very, very irritated because of this hospitalizations thing, and she said that since last 2 years, every time she got periods for 24 hours or to 48 hours, she had to be hospitalized. She stayed in the hospital. She got that drip, the painkillers through drip, and then she was discharged. And again, the next period, same thing repeated. So the ultrasound showed early adenomyotic changes and bilateral polycystic ovaries. These were the ultrasonographic report. Then she had history of typhoid, TB in grandmother, and fibroid in mother. Now the physical generals were there. She likes spicy food, fast food, and thirst was good. Stools incomplete sensation and occasionally constipated. She was chilly, and otherwise everything was normal. This is the reports where you can see the changes. Now, female, now the rubrics that I had taken for this case: female, pain uterus, menses during, and beginning of act. Now another rubric is there: cry out compels her to during. You can see colocynth is present, pulsatilla is present in bold, and there is also nux vomica present. So this girl, she was working in an MNC in Gurgaon, and she was very, very ambitious girl. And every time she had a talk with me, I felt that she was a very highly ambitious young girl. So this rubric I had taken, mind ambitious, and on the basis of that, nux vomica was prescribed to her along with viburnum, which I said that she has to take viburnum every time she gets periods. Otherwise, I gave her a single dose of nux vomica. So she got periods, and she called me and she said this is the first time in 2 years that she was not admitted to the hospital. She had pain, but she could manage it at home, and she was not admitted. Okay, Jonosia Asoka Q also I prescribed her for about 1 month, and viburnum she takes every time. Now this girl is in Australia presently, and she has the medicines with her, and every time she has periods, she takes viburnum. And nux vomica also I have given her once, and I think twice recently also I prescribed her again. I asked her to go for an ultrasound again, but she said, oh, she's in Australia, so she'll come back to India and then she will go for an ultrasound. So I have this initial ultrasound, but presently I don't have the later ultrasound. Now, this is a case of 7th case. I have 10 cases. Then quickly I will complete with all my cases. Now, this is a case of dysmenorrhea. She's a young 19 years unmarried lady with severe dysmenorrhea associated with vomiting. Now, this girl, she used to vomit along with dysmenorrhea. This was her main symptom. So, irregular menses and extreme pain and vomiting from excessive pain. This was her main symptom. Now, I took the rubric in the repertory: stomach vomiting, pains from. Colocynth is present. There are 6 remedies and colocynth is present. So colocynth was prescribed, and not only her periods became regular, but this dysmenorrhea was also taken care of with this colocynth. Okay. Now this is 8th case. This is a case of gestational hypertension. This is a lady, 37 years lady, consulted online for gestational hypertension with swelling of face, feet, hands, and fingers. And in her 6th month of pregnancy, with a BP of 190 to 110 mm of Hg with a slight or mild proteinuria. Now, she suffered with hemorrhoids also, which aggravated during pregnancy. And these were all the physical generals. Now, on the basis of swelling face pregnancy during, this was the rubric that I first took. And there are just 3 medicines given: Epis, Mercor, and Phosphorus. Now, on the basis of this rubric, I prescribed her Epis 30 twice daily for 5 days. And after that, after the first dose only, her BP came down, and eventually the swelling of the face also reduced. So Epis was prescribed on and off. She was given Epis, and later a single dose of Natrum was also given. And she delivered her healthy baby through C-section on the 5th October. Okay, so this was a case of gestational hypertension. Now, hyperemesis gravidarum. This is a 26 years lady consulted for gestational. This is a 26 years lady consulted. I could not correct this. With excessive vomiting she had during pregnancy. Okay, this is a case of vomiting during pregnancy. So we see 86 medicines are given for vomiting during pregnancy. Asarum, creosote, sepia, and symphoricarpus are present in bold here, along with all other remedies. So on the basis of this, symphoricarpus was prescribed. She was also given a dose of sepia, I remember, and then symphoricarpus was given, after which her this excessive vomiting that she had was controlled. She had vomiting. Usually we have vomiting just up till the 3 months. In the first trimester we have vomiting, but she continued to have her vomiting up till the 5th month. But it was very, very mild. She came to me around her 3rd month. Okay, so this was a case of hyperemesis gravidarum. Now this is another case of oligohydramnios. A 34 years lady consulted online for oligohydramnios with very much reduced fetal movements. This was the subjective symptoms, that she felt the fetal movements were very reduced, along with this report for oligohydramnios. She was worried that the movements were very, very reduced. Now, on the basis of the symptom that there is reduced fetal movements, I prescribed sepia 1 mg to her twice in a week. And after every dose, she felt an increase in the fetal movements, and her overall mental state also improved. Now, in such cases, you have to also recommend a very healthy diet to these patients, because usually it is also associated with hypoglycemia. These sometimes they don't feel like eating, they don't eat well. So these states trigger this reduced fetal movements, and especially if it is associated with circulatory defects, then you have to think of the medicines very quickly. And you also have to be in touch with the gynecologist also. You have to ask them to please go and have regular checkups, because you cannot take risk in such cases. These are when usually in the later months. Okay, in the 3rd trimester only such cases come to us. So these cases you don't have to take risk all alone. You have to be in touch with the gynecologist. You have to always encourage them to go and seek help from them also, and you have to support them with your medicines. So sepia worked very well for her, and she consulted me just 10 days or 12 days before. She consulted me on the 10th of December, and twice I prescribed her sepia, and on 20th of December she delivered a healthy baby through C-section. Now we cannot claim in such cases also, except to just provide relief to patients, because patient satisfaction is very important for us. Is the only thing that matters for us. Whether or not they give credit to our medicine or not, nevertheless we have to prescribe, and we have to have that that unconditional support we have to provide them. So this is a case of oligohydramnios. Then the last case is of insomnia and pregnancy. This is a 32 years lady. In her 4th month of pregnancy, she consulted for nightmares, for anxiety, and for insomnia. She could not sleep well, and the family didn't wanted to take the allopathic medicines. And also, most of them are contraindicated during pregnancy. So she was consulted to me, and she used to wake up with all those bad dreams and nightmares, and then she could not sleep again due to fears. So she was prescribed belladonna multiple times and relieving every time her anxiety, and her sleep also improved over the time. And recently she has also delivered a healthy baby girl. So this is a case of insomnia and pregnancy. So these are all the cases. I have just summarized all my cases. 11 cases I have shown here, and these are summarized. Now there is an important, I'll just conclude my this thing presentation with a role of diet is also very important, especially in cases of pregnancy, where you have to ask them that you have to have a very good healthy diet, not just supporting your general health but also your overall hormonal health. Okay, so this should be the advices given to the patients by us. Dr. Hahnemann has also emphasized the role of diet and regimen. Okay, so the final takeaway of this is that hormonal imbalances are very common these days. Gynecological disorders are very common these days, with all the lifestyle factors also playing an important role. But still, homeopathy has a very important role to play, and we can support these patients through homeopathy in a very beautiful way. And we are living in a world where so much chemicals and so many the food and the beverage industries, every time we are ordering online, we are getting hot food in plastic containers, we are drinking water in plastic bottles. So we have so much chemicals and microplastics inside our body, so many chemicals which are endocrine disrupting chemicals, EDCs they are classified as, because they are disrupting our hormones and they are causing fertility issues and whatnot, a lot of health issues. So these can also act as obstacles to cure. Dr. Hahnemann has asked us as physicians to also take care of the obstacles to cure. We should know them, because unless we know and mark them, we won't be able to treat our cases well. So this is also important, that these chemicals, they sometimes act as obstacles to cure. Also cosmetics, deodorants, perfumes, and even soaps. Recently I saw that this Dove soap, they were, I'm taking this name of the brand because they are so cunning that they are putting those chemicals. In European countries they are banned, and but in India we don't have so many rules, and they just keep on selling their products in the names of fragrances, and we buy them because of the fragrances, that they have very good fragrances, and they are laden with all these endocrine disrupting chemicals, causing so much hormonal imbalance in us and also hampering our fertilities. So we have to take care that, especially in the sensitive times, especially in around the puberty or during pregnancies, we have to avoid cosmetics, we have to avoid deodorants, we have to avoid perfumes, because there is no marking, also there is no labeling. You don't know what ingredient is present in a perfume, we don't know what ingredients are present in cosmetics. Many cheap cosmetics, they have heavy metals in them. So we are supposed to warn our patients regarding all these things also, because we are preservers of health also. Dr. Hahnemann has said in aphorism 4 that along with all the knowledge the physician should have, he or she should also be a preserver of health. So we have to warn all our patients regarding all these disrupting chemicals as well. Then we have to educate them about nutrition, about healthy lifestyle and everything. This is also our role to play as educators. Then individualized, obviously homeopathy believes in a customized and an individualized treatment. We cannot have protocols that this and this medicine is going to work. Of course we can have strategies and we can have therapeutics, but finally individualized treatment is going to work for every case. So this is it, and homeopathy is indeed a blessing. It helps to manage a lot of physical and emotional complaints without causing any adverse effects. So this is the ultimate takeaway. This is the references that I have taken. You can go through the references. And thank you so much for the opportunity yet again. And that's it.
Thank you, madam.